podcast all about the Archaic period in Greece.
There are three important time periods in ancient Greek history. There are the Archaic period, the Classical period, and the Hellenistic period. The Archaic period was the first of the three and took place from 800 BC to 480 BC. During the Archaic period, the Greeks were rebuilding their civilization after the Dark Ages had taken place.
The Greeks now had plenty of gold to build new buildings, mostly temples to honor the gods. During the Archaic period, the people no longer wanted rule by kings, so palaces were taken down and replaced by monuments to the gods. Since there would be little or no rule by monarchy, the people looked to the wealthy aristocrats, a group of rich men who formed an oligarchy.
Making a living in Greece was difficult. Most of the people that actually lived in Greece would have to either make a living off of farming, trading, stealing, or raiding other towns. In the Archaic period, there were also new ways of them fighting in war. For example, men would line up next to each other, side by side, and everyone had a shield, and all together they would form a wall of shields protecting each other.
Now let's begin our interview with Corvus.
Hi, I am down here at Olympia with the first winner ever of the Olympics, a hometown hero who before he won the Olympics was a cook. Please welcome Corvus of Elis.
Hello all, in 776 BC, I won the first ever Olympics at Olympia. It was by far the greatest moment of my life. I was given a crown made out of a branch from a sacred olive tree and olive branches, but the main victory for me was the glory that followed after the Olympics.
Wow, Corvus, that is something that no one can ever take away from you. Tell me, Corvus, how did the Olympics first started?
Well, there are many stories on how the Olympics first started. Some of the stories include characters such as Hercules, Pelops, Zeus and Kronos, and King Iphitos.
Wow, that is amazing that there are so many stories. Can you tell us more on what you have to do to become an Olympic winner?
Well, there are many painful hours that go into training for the Olympics. First off, you are not allowed to compete unless you've been training for a minimum of 10 months. In addition, you have to come to the arena at Olympia a month before the Olympics, but it is all worth the wait.
I have only been to one of the Olympics at Olympia, and it was amazing. The crowd of 40,000 was so enthusiastic about the games, but their favorite was the sprints. Tell me, Corvus, what event were you in?
In fact, I was in the first sprint at Olympia. The race was approximately 192 meters or 210 yards, and were the greatest few seconds of my life running it.
Well, the games are mostly about sports, but there is a religious aspect to the games. Tell me, what is the main festival?
In my opinion, the main religious festival at the Games is the sacrifice to Zeus. Also, at the Games, Spartans are much nicer than the Athenians. In a quote from Plutarch, he quotes, "There was an old man walking around the stadium that couldn't find anywhere to sit. He searched through most of the stadium, and no one would even move an inch for the elder to watch. But when the man got to the Spartan side of the stadium, they greeted him with respect, and the old man sat down. It is unfortunate that the Athenians cannot learn the respect of the Spartans."
Wow, what a story. Although I would love to continue on the famous quote, I have to ask you, what is the number of spectators that come to the event?
Well, it depends on the year. When there's good athletes at the event, there's nearly 60,000. But on average, there is around 40 to 50,000. In my year, there was 60,000 because it was the first year of the event.
That's very interesting. I also would like to ask you, what is the type of person that the Olympic Committee is looking for to compete in the Games?
Well, the Olympic Committee says that they want to have a person who is the fittest and strongest looking in a crowd. By competing in the Games, us Olympians are sacrificing and offering our strength, speed, and power to the gods.
When I first heard about the Olympics, I thought it was just going to be a small event, but I was mistaken. These Games have brought Greece to an even higher level of advancement than near civilization.
Yes, I would totally agree with your statement. All the festivities truly make the Olympics. The few seconds I was running, I could sense Zeus watching down, cheering for me to win the race, because he knew how much time and effort I put into winning at the most prestigious level.
In your opinion, was the training worth it?
Definitely. When I saw it come in first place, I thought I was dreaming. In fact, I almost thought I was going to faint while slowing down.
At the Games, I remember seeing lots of vendors and sorts of things. In my opinion, it was the most interesting thing I've ever been to.
Thanks for interviewing me, Kaylee. I like to tell people how the Olympics changed my life and what it's truly all about.
No problem, Corvus. Let's take it back to Ruby and Brian so that we can start to interview Homer.
Pythagoras came up with the Pythagorean theorem, a math equation used today. There are many important events that happened during the Archaic period, such as the first ever Olympic Games in 776 BC. The First Messenian War took place in 757 BC. Homer was writing the poems of Iliad and Odyssey, which were two of the most famous epic poems in Greece around 750 BC. In 600 BC, the first of the Greek coins were shown to people. Then, in 570 BC, Pythagoras was born. He was a man that made many of the accomplishments in science, math, and philosophy, and we still use the philosophy system today.
Now we have an interview with the famous poet Homer.
Hello everyone, here I have the famous Homer. Homer was believed to be the greatest epic writer in ancient Greece. Homer, what can you tell us about your stories?
Well, I have written two known stories known as the Iliad and the Odyssey.
When did you write these stories in your lifetime?
Well, I wrote the Iliad in my youth, and when I got older, I wrote the Odyssey.
Would you tell us a bit about the Iliad and the Odyssey?
Well, the Iliad is about a 10-year-long Trojan War. It all started when the wife of King Armageddon was stolen and taken to Troy, and the Odyssey is about a Greek hero and his adventure from fighting in the Trojan War.
Oh, well, we can't give too much away. Is it true that you are blind?
I think so, but the scientists aren't 100% sure yet.
How do people come to know about your stories?
Well, it was believed that people recited handwritten copies of them, but since it was handwritten by many people, some of the words might not be exact same as the words that I had.
Do you have any idea as to why only the Iliad and the Odyssey had survived throughout time and made it this far?
I think it is because of its long and sophisticated form that has been passed down through generations and generations.
Homer, we don't have any evidence as to when you lived, but scientists and researchers are believing that you lived around 850 BC. We have no documents or historical records to prove anything, but from all the evidence about your stories and what you have written about, this is what they are concluding. They are also concluding that you lived in Ionia and Asia Minor. Is it true that you lived around 850 BC in Ionia and Asia Minor?
I believe so.
Well, if you lived around 850 BC, then your poems must have been written around that time. Researchers are thinking 800 BC to 700 BC. Is it accurate to say that your poems reached their final form around the 8th century?
I would say so. Since they were passed down, everything got altered a bit, but I believe that it reached its final form sometime around the 8th century.
No one is really sure on what class you're in, but considering that you had access to information, the Greeks and the Greeks respected you very much, being able to compose such stories, you have to conclude that you were in a pretty high up class. Would you agree?
Yes, they didn't have any way for me to write stories down back then, but the first written item that researchers have found was dated back to 750 BC, and I wasn't alive at that time, so I had to speak out my poems.
Interesting. Some people believe that you were alive during the Trojan War, but others say that you lived way after because of the style that you wrote.
Well, as I said before, scientists have figured out that I lived around 850, so it's not far from the Trojan War, but I didn't live during that time either.
After you died, the Greeks made it a tradition to recite your poems at ceremonies and important events. How do you feel about this?
I'm very glad that they enjoyed my stories, and I hope that everyone else likes them too.
Thank you, Homer. Up next, we have an interview with Draco.
Welcome back. Now we are going to talk to the leader, Draco. He will be talking to us about the governments in Greece. Draco, how are you today?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm great. Thanks for coming. So let's begin with the government you were a part of.
Well, I was an aristocrat, which means that the government I was a part of was the oligarchy, just like most other aristocrats.
Nice. Can you explain to us who had the main power in the oligarchy?
In the oligarchy, the ruling power was in the hands of only a few people. I was one of the lucky rulers.
Sounds like it was great for you. Tell us more about what happened when the oligarchs ruled.
When the oligarchs ruled, so much of it was great, but obviously there are always downfalls. I created my code of laws which put the city-states in order. The oligarchs had very comfortable lives. During our rule, the rich became richer. Unfortunately for them, however, when the rich became richer, the poor became poorer. Although this didn't affect me, the poor started to hate me and the others in power. The poor got soldiers to throw us out of power, and the oligarchs were out of rule.
Wow, seems like a lot happened for you during this time. Now let's get a little further back to the beginning. Can you tell us about when the monarchy was in rule?
In the monarchy, the ruling power is in the hands of only one person. They are usually called by king, emperor, or sultan. They have a wonderful council of aristocrats to advise them with their decisions.
Go on, this is so interesting.
At first, kings were chosen by the city-state, but later the kings demanded that their sons take the throne after them. Us aristocrats got sick of the kings and we took over. Kings then disappeared during the 7th and 8th centuries BC.
Okay, go back to after the monarchy. What was next?
After the monarchy was the tyranny. That was a crazy time.
Tell us about it.
The tyrants were cruel leaders that took their power by force. The ruling power was in the hands of someone who isn't a lawful king. They controlled the poor and didn't have a legal right to rule. Most tyrants were military leaders. Unlike the monarchies, tyrant sons didn't receive their father's power. Most tyrants were military leaders taking power by telling people they would give them more rights. Some tyrants were good, however, and they used their power to help people. Tyrants were the stepping stones to democracy.
Cool. Speaking of democracy, can you tell us more about those times? What was so special about the democracy?
In the democracy, every citizen had a say in the laws. Everybody shared the ruling power. All citizens could vote at the assembly, and they had a council of 500 men. For a meeting to take place, 6,000 people had to attend. During this time, some people persuaded others to vote unwisely. This made other city-states decide to go back to past governments.
Well then, sounds like Greece took a while to decide which government was best.
Yeah, they did.
Thank you for coming today and telling us about the governments in Greece.
Thanks for inviting me.
We have learned that the first ever winner of the Olympics was Corvus of Elis, and that the Olympics were very competitive games.
As well, we have learned all the governments in ancient Greece, and we met Draco. There were many governments in ancient Greece, but the one in which people had the right to talk was a democracy.
In addition, we have learned about Homer and his epics, the Iliad and the Odyssey. We have also learned about how Homer was supposedly blind and no one is sure of when he lived.
Thank you for watching and have a good night.